January 24th, 1848, a sawmill like this one on the American River in Mexican California was nearing completion. It was to become the most profitable sawmill ever built, not for the lumber that it milled, but for the dreams that it spawned, and yet it would bankrupt its owners.
James Marshall and John Sutter wanted to go into the lumber business, and it was while constructing this mill, which was about two-thirds completed, that James Marshall discovered gold.
This day, some kind of metal was found in the tail race that looks like gold.
Those words echoed out of the canyons of the Sierra Nevada, reverberated off the walls of California cantinas, rumbled across the country, and roared around the world. For more than 300 years, Spanish and Mexican explorers had been searching for gold in California. By 1848, all that had been found were small deposits around Los Angeles. Almost as though willed by manifest destiny, it was left to James Marshall, a morose carpenter from New Jersey, to discover the gold that would launch one of the greatest migrations in human history.
Shutting off the water from the race, I stepped down into it, and there, upon the rock, about 6 inches beneath the water, I discovered the gold. I picked up 1 or 2 pieces and then tried it between 2 rocks, and found that it could be beaten into a different shape, but not broken.
Conjectures were it must be a rich deposit, and the fever set in and gold was on the brain.
In January 1848, California was still a Mexican province. Before news of the discovery of gold reached the outside world, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed. The 2-year war with Mexico was over. On February 2nd, 1848, Mexican California became a United States territory, just 9 days after gold was discovered. Few immigrants had braved the overland trail to California before 1848, but in 1849, tens of thousands traveled its dusty ruts in their quest for gold.
Gold, gold, gold on the American River.
Samuel Brannan, a preacher, newspaperman, and an ambitious entrepreneur, was waving a bottle of gold dust as he ran into town on that Wednesday, May 10, 1848. Brannan was partners in a store at Sutter's Mill. Pans used in placer mining, which had sold for 20 cents each just a few weeks before, were now bringing $8 to $16 apiece. Brannan made some 200% profit each day on his mercantile operations. When the news of the strike first reached the States in September 1848, it created a mild sensation. It was an election year, and politics grabbed the headlines and sold papers. But much like the fabled El Dorado, news of the richness of the California gold strike grew with each retelling.
An estimated 4,000 miners now working in California are taking out $30,000 to $50,000 of gold per day, at least,
wrote Colonel Richard Mason, the military governor of California, to President Polk. As proof, he sent along 220 ounces of gold in a tea caddy. Then, on December 5, 1848, an unre-elected President James Polk, in his last State of the Union address, confirmed to Congress and the country that there was indeed gold in California, lots of it, more than could be imagined.
Then that's when it really took off, because people recognized, hey, this is the government legitimating this story. This isn't just journalistic hype. You know, we got the President of the United States talking about this.
The next day, newspaper headlines scream, gold, gold in California. The gold fever that had been simmering just below the nation's conscience now exploded into a full-fledged epidemic. The rush to El Dorado was on.
We are on the brink of the age of gold. Hope is drawing her thousands of disciples to the new El Dorado, where fortune lies abroad upon the surface of the earth, as plentiful as the mud in our streets. The only machinery necessary in the new gold mines of California is a stout pair of arms, a shovel, and a tin pan. Horace Greeley, New York Daily Tribune, December 11, 1848.
For those who caught gold fever in 1849, it became a question of how to get to California fastest.
Oftentimes they would get together in a very social in democratic fashion. They would have constitutions, bylaws, assign captains, very formal organization.
Once organized, they bought equipment and chose their route west, whether by land or sea. The ocean voyage was a 17,000-mile expedition around Cape Horn to California. A shorter but more difficult trip was down to Panama, across the malaria-infested isthmus, and up the coast to California. For the overlanders, their choices were south to Santa Fe, across Apache country, and on to California, or by the already established Oregon-California Trail, across the rolling prairies and mountain ranges of the West. It would be 2,000 miles of blood, sweat, and tears. But to the Argonauts of 1849, their dreams of a golden El Dorado seemed more real than reality itself.
The expectation was, almost universally, that you'd go out there, you'd make your pile, and you'd come home.
The California Trail was dominated by young men, ready to take a gamble, ready for anything.
I among the rest. Some of the tales were fabulous and were enough to entice any man of grit and daring to challenge fortune, with the hope of escaping the yoke of poverty and the discomfort of narrow circumstances.
The gold was out in California. All you had to do was get out there and just start scooping it up into burlap sacks. You know, that was the story, and that's what they believed.
Most left with more confidence than experience, and for many that lack of experience would turn their dreams into nightmares on their quest for gold.